Hi, my name is Sonia Paradis, and I wondered, do neurotypical people integrate well autists to the society? First, I need to tell you that I am not a specialist in autism. I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and a master's degree in microbiology immunology. It is just that I became interested in autism at some point during my life. First, in 2015, I read the book Les personnes autistes et le choix professionnel from Émilie Robert. Émilie Robert is a guidance counselor at Collège Montmorency. She dedicates her practice to students with a handicap, particularly autists. Then, from 2016 up to now, I followed courses from the SACAD clinic. The first course talks about the structure of the autistic brain. The second course talks about the langage saccade conceptuel, which we could translate as conceptual saccade language. The third course is about the emotions of autists. And the fourth course is not available yet. I am waiting for it. As soon as it is available, I want to follow it. Then, in 2017, I read the book L'autisme expliqué aux non-autistes, which is a bestseller, and it was translated in many languages, including English. The English version is entitled New Ways of Understanding Autism. It is written by Brigitte Harrison and Lise Saint-Charles. Brigitte Harrison is a social worker and high-functioning autist. She is the co-founder of the SACAD Clinic and inventor of the langage saccade conceptuel, which is, in English, the conceptual saccade language. Lise Saint-Charles is a supervisor and specialist in the autism spectrum disorder. She is a co-founder of the SACAD Clinic. And then in 2019, I read the book L'estime de soi et l'autiste, written also by Brigitte Harrison and Lise Saint-Charles. So here I put the link to the internet website. All the courses are available online. However, they are in French. To follow them, you don't need to be able to speak in French. If you are able to read in French and if you are able to understand French, it is enough to follow those courses. My suggestion is that you try to understand, to watch free short videos available online on that site. And if you are able to understand what is said, I think that you would be able to follow the courses if you are interested in following them. I put also the Facebook link, so it is also interesting to go there. And also a note, I am not paid by the SACAD Clinic. Okay, so what I have learned from those courses and from my readings is that up to 1990, we did not know a lot about autism. It is only from 1990 at some point that in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, so the DSM, that we described better autism. At that moment, we talked about pervasive developmental disorder, or PDD, and it included high-functioning autism, Asperger's syndrome, and PDD not otherwise specified, and some others less frequent. Since 2013, there is a new version of the DSM. It is now the DSM-5, and we talk about autism spectrum disorder. So, autism spectrum disorder is characterized in the DSM-5 according to the four following characteristics. 1. Persistent deficits in communication and social interaction. 2. restricted and repetitive activities or interests. 3. Symptoms present since early childhood but can go almost unnoticed. And 4. The totality of symptoms limit and impairs daily functioning. The gravity levels of the autism spectrum disorder is according the kind of support the person needs. So the support may be occasional, frequent, or constant. Also, I learned that autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. The precise causes has or have not been identified yet. They could be genetic or environmental causes. Among the environmental causes, here I put only 2 possible environmental causes. Some drugs taken during pregnancy may increase the risks of having an autist child. Also, the poor health of the mother, for example, smoking or type 1 diabetes, obesity, may increase the risks also of having a autistic child. Vaccines don't cause autism. Autists may show hyperreactivity or hyporeactivity to certain stimuli. That hyperreactivity or hyporeactivity may be tactile, auditory, visual, olfactory, gustatory, or sensory. For example, somebody may feel less physical pain or hunger. The autistic brain takes more time for processing information than the neurotypical brain. The autistic brain takes more time for knowing oneself. Therefore, it takes more time for turning to others. There are 3 autistic thinking styles: in images, in words, and in patterns. The autistic brain thinks more from the perception side than the relationship side. Autism may be described as a social blindness. It is more difficult for autists to learn from imitation than the neurotypical people. Therefore, it is better to explain things, even those that seem obvious to the neurotypical people. For example, how to present oneself, how to learn about a person that we don't know or that we know just a little, how to show interest to others' life. Autism cannot be healed by stopping autistic manifestations. The tools for educational and professional guidance used for neurotypical people don't work with autists. Autists can progress if they receive suitable help. And also, the conceptual saccade language and visual supports improve communication between autists and neurotypical people and can help autists in their development. So, I said earlier, it is a neurodevelopmental disorder. What does it mean exactly? So the comparison point is the development of neurotypical people. So here I put only a few examples of what we see among neurotypical people. First, when at the birth of a full-term baby, the babies wake their parents up nights and days because they are hungry, so they feel the hunger, but they are not conscious of their hands, okay? So it is between 1 month to 12 months that the babies become more and more conscious of their hands. Around 12 months, they can point, they can touch, and they can use their fingers as claws. Between 6 and 9 months, the babies discover their parents' face. They may put their finger in their parents' mouth. Between 12 to 15 months, babies look at people in the eyes already. Between 15 and 18 months, the children like to play around other children of their age, but each child has his or her own activity. Between 1 year to 5 years, the language develops. Between 4 and 5 years, the children cooperate with other children. And then, between 7 and 8 years old, the children are able to better detect what the others think and feel. So they become also better at resolving conflicts. So here I am going to give you some example of autists that we know progressed a lot. Okay, so what I want to show here is that autists, even though they may show at some point like a blockage, okay, their development blocks at some steps, okay, in comparison to neurotypical people, there is a possibility to pass those blockages and progress. First, Temple Grandin. She's born in 1947. At 4 years old, she was unable to speak. At 2 years old, she received a diagnosis of brain damage. But during adulthood, she passed a brain imaging and we could see that she did not have any brain damage. So the diagnosis was incorrect. At 4 years old, she was not able to speak, but after that, she was able to speak and to speak a lot. She was able to go to school and she obtained her doctorate's degree in animal sciences. She is now a teacher at the Colorado State University. She is an author of many books on autism. She's a speaker and she's an inventor. She progressed a lot. Here another example, Brigitte Harrison, born in 1961. She received a diagnosis of high-functioning autism when she was an adult after having had a suicidal thoughts. So if you remember, in 1961, we did not know a lot about autism, okay? So when she was young, people did not see that she was an autist. So it is only later that she asked for help and she received a diagnosis of high-functioning autism. If you look at her videos, you will see that sometimes she has something in her hand, and this is an autism management object. So it helps her to do what she has to do. I already mentioned that she's a social worker, co-founder of SACAD, an Autism Expertise Center in Quebec City. She's the inventor of the langage SACAD conceptual SACAD language, and she's an author of many, many books on autism. Another example, Cody Lee. Is born in 1996. Cody was born blind and also received a diagnosis of autism at young age. But he is the winner of the 14th season of America's Got Talent. So I invite you, if you can find on internet his audition, you will see that when his mother presented him, she explained on that. Also, Cody Lee had a little bit of difficulties for speaking, but when he started to play piano and sing, we could not see his autism at all. So this is something very extraordinary to see. Also, Max Park, born in 2001, he received a diagnosis of autism at 2 years old. And in his case, his fine motor skills were not, it was difficult for him. And his parents, to try to help him develop his fine motor skills, tried different things. And at some point, they tried a Rubik Cube. And he was very interested by resolving Rubik Cubes. And now he's a world champion of speed cubing. Okay, so as I mentioned, autism is a spectrum, okay? So there are people who are very, very autonomous. And we have an example of that into the book, Les personnes autistes et le choix professionnel. In there, we have Gabriel's story. Gabriel is first in his class in an enriched program at high school. Is registered in a college in natural sciences. When he was 4 years old, he could not speak, and he received a diagnosis of dysphagia. Around 5, his language developed rapidly. Well, he didn't say his first words. He said his first sentence with perfect grammar and syntax. So we can see here that he didn't have at all dysphagia, okay? During his last year at high school, he received a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. What is interesting is that Gabriel is very curious, and he had read about ASD. And he himself suggested to his mother to pass the test to know if he has ASD. And yeah, the test confirmed. So we can see here that his mother did not see at all that he could be an autist, but he thought that yes, he could be an autist, and he was relieved because he could finally put a name on his difference. So when he arrived at the college, he consulted Émilie Robert because he didn't know what job he was going to do. Because of his very good academic record, he could study in medicine. He was also interested in psychology, and he was able to play piano very well. He has a perfect ear. In his case, he experiences synesthesia. So for people who don't know what synesthesia is, it is a mix of different senses. So for Gabriel, each music note has its own color. So at first glance, we would not think that Gabriel is an autist because he speaks very well and he learns easily academic subjects and music. But if you remember, into the DSM-5, one of among the characteristics to determine if somebody has autism spectrum disorder, there is the persistent deficits in communication. So when he met with Émilie Robert, she knew that she still had to adapt the communication with him. So for the communication with autists, on the whole spectrum, instead of being vague and evasive or use metaphors, it is better to be as specific as possible and verify if the autist understood. Instead of speaking too fast, it is better to speak at a rate similar to the one used by the autist. Instead of communicating only orally, it is better to vary the communication forms and have a visual aid at hand. Instead of expecting that the autist will express easily his or her emotions, it is better to orient the discussion on facts instead of on emotions. Instead of insisting on eye contact, it is better to look at the autist, but not necessarily in the eyes. And also do not demand eye contact from the autist. Instead of expecting that the autist will understand the nonverbal language, it is better to explain the nonverbal language. And instead of filling the silences, it is better to give some space to silences. So also autism among more autonomous individuals, as you can see with Gabriel's story, can be more difficult to detect. They do not do autistic meltdowns. They move in a fluid way, and they speak in a fluid way. However, speech may develop later than among neurotypical people. Autistic manifestations among these autistic people who are more autonomous are much more subtle. For example, an autistic teacher or speaker does not have difficulties in speaking about his or her area of expertise to a crowd, but may show anxiety during a dialogue with one or a few people. In fact, dialogue includes a series of complex actions: listening what the other says, understanding the meaning of the words, then giving an answer. Moreover, in a dialogue, any topic may be discussed, including a topic unknown from the autist. Another example, an autistic person shows ease in talking about topics he or she likes, but shows difficulties talking about oneself and or discuss personal topics, hobbies, preferences, studies, career, health, children with others. They are more on the perception side than on the relationships side. That characteristics may cause difficulties in making new friends or in meeting a lover. So if you are interested, you might want to watch the Netflix documentaries Love on the Spectrum. So what is very interesting is to see that autistic people who want to meet a lover don't know always what to say to a person that they don't know. So there are specialists in autism who will go meet them with a paper and a pencil to explain and give some examples of sentences that may be used to better know the other person. It is interesting, even though here Love on the Spectrum, it is to try to meet a lover. I think it can be also useful for parents who have an autistic child to see how what kind of questions they could be suggested, because they could be used also for making new friends. An autistic person that is more autonomous, and even the other autistic people, they may give the impression of not listening others in a conversation, whereas they may simply need more time than the neurotypical people at processing the information received. Also, the autists may learn everything. The autists who learn everything easily. Okay, so we could call them encyclopedias on two legs. Sometimes they may seem arrogant from the point of view of neurotypical people. They are simply very strict with accuracy. So with Gabrielle's story, we see that it is as much important to diagnose autism among more autonomous autists than among less autonomous autists in order to provide them the support they need. Here I would like to talk briefly about the conceptual saccade language. I am not a specialist in autism, so I am not going to give details. If you are interested in improving your communication with autistic people by knowing the conceptual saccade language, follow the courses. It is the best way. But I just want to explain that when I learned about the conceptual saccade language, I was able to see some similarities with the tools that I see in sciences. In sciences, we can use graphs, tables, plots, phylogenetic trees, schemas, illustrations, etc. All those tools help with synthesis when there is too much data to analyze by the brain. Also, they help with communication between neurotypical people. For the conceptual saccade language, they help with understanding concepts of everyday life, and they help with communication between autists and neurotypical people. They are different from pictograms. Pictograms, they don't have words, so they are very useful for autists who are not able to speak yet. After that, the conceptual saccade language, since it uses words, a few words, it is for people who are able to read. But what is interesting is that in both cases, they use positioning in space of key elements in order to simplify reflection. And they help with making links between key elements, therefore help in comprehension. Also, for both cases, we can use the language of our choice. For example, we can have a graph in French, in English, in Spanish. So also the conceptual saccade language can be used with any tongue. As a note, the conceptual saccade language tools are more useful to less autonomous autists, but there are still some tools that may be useful for more autonomous autists. More autonomous autists are more flexible in the communication tools. For example, we may want to show a computer application and its functionalities instead of simply talking about them. So it's better to show things and show the links when we talk to autists. Okay, so here I would like to share with you something that really happened. And here, the person who told me that story is the person that we see in Canada. That person was on the phone, and she was there to help in giving an interview for a job. And then in the United States, there were a group of people asking questions to a candidate to a job. And here I really put phones because it was not a video conference, it was really a teleconference. So the person in Canada could not see the candidate, the job. That person could only hear the person and talk to the person. After the interview, there was a meeting, and the person who could not see the candidate said that the candidate seemed to be a good choice for the job because he had given very good answers. The people who saw the candidate said that he was not a good choice because he had never looked at them in the eyes during the whole interview. So when I was told that story, I had already started to learn more about autism. And I told myself, the candidate might be an autist. I think that rejecting a candidate only because he does not look at people in the eyes is unfair. I think it is discrimination. And I discussed about that story with somebody in human resources. Here, I want to share a personal experience. I was at a career fair, and I was at my company's booth to answer people's questions. There was a person who started to ask me questions without looking at me. And at that moment, it was after I started to learn about autism. So I thought that he was maybe an autist. And I tried as much as I could to answer his questions. However, it was a career fair and there were a lot of people around us. And it was very noisy, okay? And what is particular is that, here you see I am facing you, and that person was talking on the side. So the sound of his voice was going on the side. It was not going easily to my ears, and I could not see his lips. So I found it difficult to follow what he was telling me. Because I could not hear all the words he was telling me. So I don't demand people to look at me, but I would have preferred that he faced me in order that his voice goes more easily in my ears, and maybe I could have been able to read some words on his lips. I would like to give a note here for the reason I don't demand people to look at me absolutely. For example, if somebody asks me to calculate 83 times 4 without any visual support, I will need to use my internal board, and I will focus on my internal board to make the calculation. And when I am doing that, it is absolutely impossible for me to look at someone's facial expressions at the same time. So my understanding is that autists who don't look or look at just a little at people's face need to have access to their internal board more often than the neurotypical people. So I think it is very important. If they need it, it is important for them to access it. Also, I would like to give another note. If an autist and a neurotypical person use a visual support, the voices are going to go towards the visual support. But that support at least contains key elements and links between them, so it will make the communication easier. Here I would like to share another personal experience. Someday I attended a training given by a firm specialized in giving help to people searching for a job. During the hour dedicated to the preparation to an interview and to the interview itself, the trainer mentioned often to pay attention to our body language and to the body language of people who give the interview. After the course, I asked the trainer what were the tips given to autists looking for a job, considering that autists often have an unusual body language and they often have difficulties with reading other body language. The trainer answered that my comment was very interesting. Recently, they had received a request for help from parents who could not understand why their son, who had university degrees, was not able to find a job. Because the trainer answered to my question without truly answering it, I concluded that this firm did not have any tips adapted to autists who were looking for a job. I found this situation very sad because educated autists is a subpopulation that encounters a lot of difficulties finding a job at the level of their competencies. According to the book Les personnes autistes et le choix professionnel, it might be better to ask for help to organisms who help people with a handicap. Those organisms seem to provide more support to people who look for jobs, for autistic people who look for a job. Okay, so in summary, here are my reflections on the integration of autists to the society. When somebody has some basics on autism and sees somebody who has a behavior that is not ordinary, that person will think, it's weird. But it might be, that person might be an autist. Okay, so there will be a hypothesis. If that person is a parent of a child, that parent may decide to consult a specialist to check, or we may adapt or bring some adjustments. So knowing about autism, I think, will increase the chances of integrate the autists to the society. If a person who does not know anything about autism or just very little and sees the same behavior that seems strange, the person will think, it's weird, and that's it. Okay, the person will not have any hypothesis for that behavior. So the incomprehension of the autistic manifestations may increase the risk of rejection. And a good example is the example that I gave with the person in the interview. So you saw that the person who was just listening at the candidate found that the candidate was a very good person, that the person could fill the job. But the people were looking at the person, the candidate. They said, no, it is not a good person to fill the job because he doesn't look at people in the eyes. It was really just, it was a rejection. So in my opinion, it is a better knowledge of autism in the general population is necessary to the integration of autists to the society. That better knowledge would help in a better differentiation of disorders with similar symptoms. We saw earlier Temple Grandin, she received a diagnosis of brain damage. It was not that at all. Gabrielle received a diagnosis of dysphagia. It was not that at all. Also, we can make some analogy with different eye disorders. For example, I don't know if you notice, but the street lights, some of them have different shapes. In addition of having different colors, the different shapes will help people who are colorblind. Into the book, Les personnes autistes et le choix professionnel, we see some suggestions of adjustments at school and or at work. First, give clear instructions in a written format. In that, if we do that, the energy is not wasted at trying to understand, and we decrease the anxiety and increase the productivity of the autistic person. If we provide a quiet room or leave the autist some moments of solitude, for example, during the lunchtime, it will help them relaxing, focusing, and or clearing out the excess of information. We could, if possible, adapt school or work schedules that would respect better the moments where the autist is the most productive. We could also discuss with the autist whether he or she wants the others to know his or her condition. The majority of autists prefer that others know their condition, but some autists prefer not. Verify if some stimuli, such as smells, noises, lights, temperature, furniture, dress code, uniform, are difficult to support and bring some necessary adjustments. For example, the neon lights may be difficult for some autist people because the neon lights, they have an intensity of light that is always fluctuating. So it increases and decreases and increases and decreases. For a neurotypical person, that change into the intensity of light is not an issue because the neurotypical brain will summarize, it is that way, there is no danger, and it will just not think about that fluctuation into the intensity of light. But for an autistic person, well, he or she might be it might be difficult for that person to concentrate because he or she will always see the light increasing and decreasing and increasing and decreasing. So yeah, it may be very disturbing. For some autists, if the budget allows it, having a smartphone may help them in finding their way and may help in written communication. If budget allows for it, a tablet or laptop. So I said that there are some autists who have difficulties with their fine motor skills. And when they write, it can be very difficult to read them. So having a tablet or laptop will help. They can type instead of write. And note-taking software or word processing software, if budget allows for it, may help in making summaries or provide text correction assistance. To be able to have basic knowledge on autism, I think that it could be taught in biology courses at school. In a similar way, we teach the different vision disorders at school, blindness, color blindness, etc., in order to detect more easily autistic manifestations. Also, we could give some basics on communication with autists and possible adjustments for autists at school. We could explain that. I think it is also important to accept the differences. Since we accept that visually impaired people don't look at us in the eyes, we understand that those people, even though they don't look at us, they are able to listen to us. we could accept that autistic people don't look at us in the eyes. Since we accept that some people wear glasses, we could accept that autistic people use an object to manage autism, if the job does not necessitate to use always both hands. Since we adapt to colorblind people by installing traffic lights with different shapes, we could adapt to autistic people by replacing neon lights, which have a light intensity that it fluctuates, by lights with stable intensity, such as LED, in schools and at work. And also for helping people to have a better health. More and more at work, we see rooms to make exercise. We could also add quiet rooms for autists. So I come back to my original question. Do neurotypical people integrate well autists to the society? My observations make me think that there is still room for improvement. Too many neurotypical people do not know anything or do not know enough things on autism. And when they meet an autistic person, there is a risk that they do not understand the autistic manifestations and that they give a label of weird, then reject the autistic person. Their ignorance on autism do harm. Moreover, schools and workplaces could be better adapted to autists. Autism is a spectrum, okay? So yes, it is true. There are some autists who need constant support. So in that case, well, they cannot contribute a lot to the society, but there are a lot of autists who can contribute to the society. And I think that rejecting them is wasting talents. So I would like to thank a lot the neurotypical people who make an effort to understand better autism, help autists in their progress, adapt to autists, and integrate autists to the society. I would like to thank also a lot the autists who take the time to explain to the neurotypical people how their brain works. For example, thank you to Temple Grandin, to Brigitte Harrison, and so many other autists. We could not have figured that out without you. Thank you. And thank you very much for your attention. Have a great day.